Hi, my name is Gracie, and for today, I will give you a brief description about the causes and aftermath of Bleeding Kansas. Bleeding Kansas was a series of violent conflicts that occurred between 1854 to 1859. The violent conflicts took place in the Kansas territories between pro-slavery and anti-slavery settlers. These conflicts included massacres like the Potawatomi Massacre, the sacking of Lawrence, and the Brooks Summer Incident. All of these conflicts ultimately led to the much larger Civil War. There were many causes leading up to Bleeding Kansas. The main cause of Bleeding Kansas was the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854. This was proposed by Stephen Douglas, and it created the territories of Kansas and Nebraska and allowed them to decide through the popular sovereignty whether to allow slavery or not. This act repelled the Missouri Compromise, which had banned slavery. The act enraged many as they saw it as an expansion of slave power. There were competing settlers and governments. Both sides of the argument, from pro-slavery to anti-slavery, made their way into Kansas to influence the vote. The conflict intensified the division between the North and the South, and ultimately led to the new Republican Party, which opposed the spread of slavery. Key events of Bleeding Kansas. In 1855, Lecompton, which was pro-slavery, and Topeka, which was a free state, formed as alliances. The sack of Lawrence was pro-slavery forces attacking the anti-slavery town of Lawrence, where they destroyed property. The Potawatomi Massacre was a deadly conflict where John Brown and his followers killed 5 pro-slavery settlers in response to the sack of Lawrence. In 1857, there were disputes over the Lecompton Constitution, which divided Congress and the Democratic Party. The Lecompton Constitution was a pro-slavery constitution drafted for the Kansas Territory and designed to protect slavery and exclude the freeing of blacks. The Constitution was eventually rejected by the Kansas voters in 1858. The end of the fighting and conflicts were ultimately stopped by the federal troops in 1859 because the people of Kansas rejected the Constitution. Kansas entered the Union as a free state in 1861. Shortly before the beginning of the Civil War. Bleeding Kansas ultimately is known as a symbol of the failure of popular sovereignty and the division that existed over slavery, because the resolution of the slavery could not be resolved peacefully. The stage had now been set for the Civil War. That's all. Thank you, and you all have a good day.